Take a look at a map of the United States. Notice anything about where most people live? That's right. A huge chunk of the population is huddled along the eastern edge. It's not a coincidence. Go back to the 1600s, when the first European settlers arrived. They landed on the East Coast, establishing their first precarious footholds in a new world. Think Jamestown, Plymouth, those names you learned about in school. These weren't just settlements, they were the seeds of a future nation. These early arrivals didn't have it easy. They faced harsh winters, unfamiliar diseases, and conflicts with Native Americans, but they persevered, building homes, farms, and communities. The East Coast, with its ample rainfall and relatively fertile soil, provided a foothold for agriculture. The vast forests offered timber for building, and the rivers provided transportation and trade routes. Over time, these settlements grew, evolving from tiny villages into bustling towns. As decades passed, the colonies matured and multiplied. What were once humble settlements transformed into centers of commerce and culture. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, these cities became hubs of trade with Europe, their harbors bustling with ships carrying goods and people. This connection to the wider world fueled their growth, attracting merchants, artisans, and laborers seeking opportunity. The East Coast location played a crucial role in its development. Positioned on the Atlantic Rim, it was closer to Europe than any other part of the nascent nation. This proximity made trade easier and faster, giving eastern cities a distinct advantage. The flow of goods and ideas across the Atlantic solidified the East Coast's position as the gateway to America. The 19th century brought about the Industrial Revolution, and with it, a dramatic shift in the American landscape. Factories sprang up, powered by coal and churning out manufactured goods. The Northeast, with its abundance of rivers and streams, was ideally suited for water-powered mills. Textile mills, ironworks, and other industries flourished, drawing people from rural areas and overseas in search of work. This industrial boom transformed the East Coast. Cities swelled with new arrivals, their populations exploding as people sought opportunities in the burgeoning factories. The demand for labor seemed insatiable, and the promise of a better life drew waves of immigrants from Europe. These new arrivals, often fleeing poverty and hardship, found work in the factories and mills, adding to the cultural tapestry of the East Coast. Section 4. Networks of movement. The Industrial Revolution brought with it not just factories, but also innovations in transportation. Railroads, those iron horses of the 19th century, crisscrossed the East Coast, connecting cities and towns in a way never before imagined. Goods and people could now move faster and cheaper, further fueling the growth of eastern cities. The development of canals like the Erie Canal further enhanced connectivity, linking the East Coast to the interior of the continent. This increased mobility had a profound impact on American society. Farmers could now transport their produce to distant markets, and manufacturers could ship their goods across the country. The railroad in particular became a symbol of progress and expansion, opening up new possibilities for trade, travel, and settlement. Section 5. A Nation of Immigrants. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, the United States experienced wave after wave of immigration. Millions of people fleeing poverty, persecution, and war crossed the Atlantic in search of a better life. And where did they land? On the East Coast, of course, the first glimpse of America for countless newcomers. These immigrants, hailing from Ireland, Italy, Germany, Eastern Europe, and beyond, brought their languages, cultures, and traditions with them. They crowded into tenement buildings, built communities, and contributed to the vibrant melting pot that characterized East Coast cities. From the Irish neighborhoods of Boston to the Italian enclaves of New York, the East Coast became a tapestry woven from the threads of countless cultures. Section 6. East Coast, West Coast, and all the rest. So why does the East Coast remain such a population center today? History, economics, and geography all play a role. The East Coast was where America began, and its historical head start continues to shape its demographics. The concentration of cities, universities, and businesses on the East Coast creates a powerful economic engine, attracting talent and investment. And then there's the climate. Compared to the West Coast, with its earthquakes and wildfires, or the Midwest with its tornadoes and blizzards, the East Coast enjoys a relatively mild climate. Yes, there are hurricanes and the occasional blizzard, but overall the weather is more predictable and less extreme. Of course, the West Coast has its own attractions, from the tech hub of Silicon Valley to the sunny beaches of Southern California. But for sheer historical weight, economic power, and yes, even climate, the East Coast continues to hold a unique allure. It's a place where history is palpable, where innovation thrives, and where the American story continues to unfold.